Marcy Deloy.
I'm all Marcus Howard.
Frank Rosano, East Chicago Transit.
Katie Londerman, Butler County.
Jerry Siska, North Township Valley Ride.
Claudia Taylor, afternoon president.
Craig Post, City Mission City.
Lori Cable, South Shore Twin Cities.
Scott Weber, Nursey staff.
Keith Bealing from American Cares.
Nami Edwards, Nurse staff.
Terry Watson, Nursey.
Doug Ferguson, Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming today. Out in the entryways, a meeting participation survey. I always remind people that fill out, fulfill our public outreach obligations. It's completely anonymous and voluntary, but it helps diversity. You have received the minutes of the February 12th, 2019 meeting. It's on pages 1 and 2 of your packet. Need some kind of action or motion to approve?
I would move to approve.
Second.
Are there any other discussion, additions, corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And do we have any public comment? Is there anybody here to make public comment? I know there's no one signed in, but we'll still ask. Seeing nobody, we'll move on to have Trey explain what's going on with the Unified Planning Work Program amendment very briefly. We'll be hearing this at the next meeting.
We put up the public comment period for the UPWP Amendment 2, which is the work program for 2020 for public comment, but we do have some changes to make for the Air Quality Public Education Program. So we're going to make those public comment and bring it back to TPC and the Commission in April.
So Trey will be back next month. This will be in front of the full commission in April. We'll go ahead and proceed now with Scott, the Northwest Indiana 2050. We got a few agendas here. The performance-based planning framework.
Good morning. So you might remember it's been a while, back in September, when I introduced the performance-based planning framework to this committee. And now we are just about to the time where it's wrapping up, and I'll be asking for your recommendation to approve this as the framework for our 2050 plan. So where did the performance-based planning framework come from? Well, a little less than a year ago, in April 2018, we got a round of public engagement and got some feedback that distilled into 4 vision areas for the plan. We have connected, renewed, united, and vibrant Northwest Indiana. And then we also had 4 plan focus areas. There was economy in place, environment, mobility, and people and leaders. When you put these 4 vision statements, these 4 plan focus areas, you come up with 4 times 4, which equals 16 cells in the matrix of critical paths. And you can see that on the wall back over there. Now, at the same time, there's federal regulations about required performance measures, that these are related to areas that the Federal Highway Administration and the Federal Transit Administration require, and these are on shorter time frames of 2- and 4-year targets. Now, NERC thought it would be a good idea to not only meet these federal requirements, but also develop a performance-based planning framework that would look at some of the other measures and indicators of performance measures that meet these 16 critical paths. But that 2- and 4-year target schedule probably would be a little bit too short to really demonstrate progress over time. So we're going to keep with the 2050 horizon, because this plan obviously looks out toward 2050, and then a midpoint in that 2050 would be 2035, roughly. Yet we'll still monitor these indicators every 2 years. So in short, the performance-based planning framework that came out of this not only meets the federal requirements, but it also adds several other performance measures to the framework. Here's the 16 critical paths. Again, I know you've all already seen this probably several times, and you can also look over there on that wall. but I'm not going to go through this in too much detail because we've seen it so much. Like I said, there are 4 vision statements across the top: connected NWI, renewed Northwest Indiana, united Northwest Indiana, and vibrant Northwest Indiana, and then of course the 4 focus areas of our Northwest Indiana 2050 plan, with economy in place, environment, mobility, people and leaders, and that results in these 16 critical paths. Each of these critical paths has a statement, and that statement is a guide for what types of performance measures would help fit that statement, that critical path statement. Okay, so then here's an overview of what this performance-based planning framework entails. Well, obviously it's NERC staff is the overseer for all performance measures, but there are other stakeholders that will contribute depending on the performance measures. We don't expect that NERC alone will be the agency that necessarily will be able to move the needle on all of these performance measures, but we will commit to monitoring these trends using our resources. And then what is this? It's a framework of measurable indicators of the plan's implementation success that we will periodically review and report on every 2 years with the targets that we develop that are reasonably expected desirable levels of performance. And then why are we doing this? Ultimately, so that we can track the implementation progress of the Northwest Indiana 2050 plan and proactively allocate resources to the areas that are lagging in the implementation progress relative to other areas. And also so we can transparently convey to the public how the Northwest Indiana 2050 plan is performing. So rather than go through each one of them, because there are, as of my last count, 96 performance measures, I thought to shorten this meeting, I'm just going to show an example of what the performance-based planning framework will actually look like when it is included with our 2050 plan. So here is an excerpt as an example. This one is the critical path statement reads, update land development policies and strategies to emphasize accessibility between people and opportunities. And there are a couple performance measures that you can see that relate to this critical path statement. We'll start with the left side of the slide, which is the all-purpose trip time. It's probably a little small for you all to read, but hopefully, you also have it in your packets, by the way, if you didn't notice. So why is this performance measure important? Well, Northwest Indiana residents, employees, and visitors should be able to reach their destinations in an acceptable amount of time. Kind of a guiding idea of why trip time is important. And then the scope of the analysis, this applies to Lake, Porter, and Fort counties, all 3 of our counties together. And what data analysis do we need for this performance measure? Well, we need the number of trips from a household travel survey, the trip purposes come from a household travel survey, and the trip times come from the household travel survey as well. And so what's our baseline conditions? Well, we broke it down by mode because this is from our feedback with the Transit Operator Roundtable. We know that obviously auto and transit modes have a pretty big discrepancy in terms of travel times that users experience. But right now, the baseline condition is by car, it's about 18.9 minutes, and by transit, it's over 45.1 minutes. And so what are reasonably expected targets? Well, by car, we'd expect by 2035, our midpoint of the plan, to be at about 21.0 minutes. So that is a slight increase, but that is consistent with vehicle miles traveled increasing. And then by 2050, 22.0 minutes. But that increase is, curved in the second half of the plan horizon from 2035 out to 2050 to start making progress in containing the increase in congestion and increase in travel time. Now, on the transit side, a reasonably expected target, because we are allocating a lot of resources toward transit, and we do think there's a lot of room for improvement, those times would decrease. So the target by 2035 would be 40.0 minutes, and by 2050 would be 35.0 minutes as reasonable targets. And then, who will help achieve the targets? Well, then these are some of these stakeholders that are involved in this particular performance measure example. Well, all levels of government, the Indiana Department of Transportation, INDOT, transit agencies, NERC, residents, employers, and developers will all play a role in moving the needle on all-purpose travel time. If we break that down to the next performance measure, I'm not going to take too long on this, but now we're looking specifically at the work purpose. Instead of the last one is for all purposes, this one is for traveling to work. What do the Northwest Indiana workers experience? Well, if you can see By car, that time in the baseline condition is a little bit more, 25.6 minutes. And by transit, they're traveling 92.9 minutes to work. Now, some of that is skewed by traveling to Chicago, which takes a little longer on the South Shore Line. But still, we can see that those times there's a big discrepancy there. The reasonably expected targets, well, we still consistent with the all-purpose. We would expect car travel time for work to increase a little bit because we're going to see more vehicle miles traveled, even with looking at the possibility of connected and automated vehicles on the horizon. There still will be more vehicle miles traveled, roughly, all forecasts agree. So 27.0 minutes by 2035 and 27.5 minutes by 2050. By transit, we think there's a huge room for improvement for that because, well, we know, for example, there's two major NICTE projects that will make a big difference in travel time to Chicago with the Westlake Corridor and the double track. So we would expect a reasonable estimate for that number to decline from the baseline of 92.9 minutes to about 85 minutes by 2035 and to 70 minutes by 2050. And of course, that also includes work trips and research. And the same stakeholders are pertinent to this performance measure. So this is just an example of what to expect for the 96 performance measures in the 2050 plan. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them, but what I'm asking of you today is to recommend this framework for inclusion in the 2050 plan.
Any questions for Tom?
Yep.
Sir.
People that work at home, are they figured into the travel time?
That's a very good question. Technically, no, these are commuting work travelers because that's what's included in the household travel survey data set. As you can see, that's where we're getting the data from.
I'm a little bit more optimistic that we can speed up the time, but these are realistic goals based on what we're doing.
Yes.
My problem is it's hard to agree to this when you don't know what all the performance measures are going to be. I mean, the framework, I guess, is okay, but for a transit operator, I would like to see what the agency is going to be judged on, considering that there's so much room for improvement.
Right. So I will mention that there are, like I said earlier, that there are, first of all, there's federally required performance measures in the world of Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration. So there are some federally required transit performance measures. Those have been covered through the Transit Asset Management Plan, the group plan that James introduced a couple months ago. So that plan still applies for guiding the federally required performance measures for FTA. I can pull up the example from for all of them if you want to see what those are, but
Well, not right now, but it would be nice to see them soon if we're voting on the plan. And are all the, okay. She wants to know. And are all the transit operators going to be lumped together?
Well, they're gonna be put out for public comment on April 1st, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So they will, all of them will be available on April 1st?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the plan in its entirety will be out by April 1st.
So,
There'll be a lot of time to digest, hopefully, during that month.
And for course, just looking at the transit trip length, we're talking about at minimum at this point, 3 different modes of transit. And is that going to be average, or is there going to be some explanation on where the data comes from? Because heck, for a work trip from Chicago to Chicago and Hammond, and then Chicago, Michigan City, just for NICTE, is going to be much different. And then you've got fixed route, and then you've got demand response. So that there's some nuance that goes into just the example numbers that we've got here.
right. And so in this case, they would be averaged out because the data is coming from the House of Travel Survey. So it includes all modes of transit in that transit number. But there are other indicators in the world of transit. For example, here's another one. Number of people within fixed route transit service areas, which is indicated as a quarter mile for bus, a half mile for commuter bus, and commuter rail. And so we've, the baseline condition for that is there's about 79,659 people within those transit service areas, and the target is increasing to 100,000 by 2035 and 140,000 by 2050. And these are in line with the overall population projections for the region, but stepped up higher for the areas of being in transit service areas.
Welcome.
I'm sorry for my delay. There was work on the access plan. We got backed up, so it took a longer way to get there. If I understand this, you're only asking us to make a recommendation relative to the performance benchmarks, which, if I understand, under all performance-based, you're either basing them on quantitatively, reductions in time based on the mode of transportation, either transit or auto, correct?
Right.
And also, you're also, in effect, it's a quantitative measurement again, when you want people more proximate to transit. Am I correct about that?
Yes.
That's the only thing we're voting on?
Well,
To approve the framework itself, the plan hasn't, you don't have that ready for us to look at.
no, the plan isn't going to be
The
ready
plan will be
until
hung around this.
April 1st. This is going to be a component of the plan, a crucial component of the plan, as it relates to quantitative performance, like you said, not just in those areas you said, but yes, absolutely for all areas of those 16 critical paths. And there, except for the federally required measures, which out of the 96, there's only roughly 19 or so. Except for those 19, there aren't going to be any penalties per se that are attached to not meeting their performance, but this is still a way of being more transparent about the progress that we're making, as well as it'll allow us to better allocate our resources to those areas that perhaps are lagging relative to other areas. So in other words, we'll be able to be more proactive about allocating the resources by measuring these things. So
Is it challenging to achieve any of these benchmarks because of how fragmented our service delivery is for the modes of transportation?
I mean, I can't speak to how the constituency of our leadership in Northwest Indiana operates in terms of how much that would affect being able to achieve these measures. I do know that people and leaders is one of the focus areas of our plan, so we are looking at, through the lens of those 4 vision statements, looking at the leadership component and the people and leaders aspect of Northwest Indiana into the future. I would say that didn't play a role in terms of coming up with the indicators in this performance-based planning system. It wasn't based on necessarily the leadership's ability to deliver these results. It was more based on looking at past performance and looking at...
That was artfully said. I have to say, that was quite well done in terms of being a planner and a diplomat. Because I might have been a little less generous. That's very well done. The only other thing I wanted to add are we only going to, I understand why we do qualitative measures because they're easy metrics and we like that because it's empirical, but there wouldn't be all of these places that evaluate satisfaction if there weren't qualitative measures as well. Are we ever going to explore that? Satisfaction of riders, or satisfaction of people in terms of with their transit system?
Well, I think, I don't know if the performance-based planning framework per se is the place that we would be, quote-unquote, measuring.
Because it says performance-based, so I take it that would be the metrics you'd use. Everything you've said sounds correctly aligned. There's a good nexus. But aren't there qualitative things that you can do?
Well, we're going to commit to continuing even more targeted and aggressive public outreach and engagement through the entire efforts, not just in this plan. So I think that we will be taking into account the more qualitative aspects to inform our allocation of resources. This is not by any means going to dictate how we allocate resources and fund projects by any means. There's going to be many other components to that. But this is one of the guiding principles, and being able to be more transparent about certain quantitative indicators that lend themselves to be quantitative, not necessarily all of the indicators of how we're doing as a region or how our region's transportation system.
I think it's fine. I'm probably I struggle with as an official is, are we giving people what they want and need? And are they satisfied with the amount of transit choices they have? And of the transit choices they have, how do they like it? And I know those are measurable. That may be beyond the ken of the scope of this, I get all that. But I do think that would be,
And one question at the end of your list,
sure,
and are they willing to pay?
Good point.
some are, some
But
aren't.
I agree with Mr. Griffin. We do need the qualitative side of it, but for right now, we're looking at this fast, and I think this is a conservative metric. That's very doable, and it's something that they can achieve. I think technology is going to be changing pretty significantly in transportation industry, in the highway industry, in transit. It's going to make a lot of difference, and even 20 years from now, of what we're going to be looking at. But for right now, in this setting, I think this is what we have.
You know, Michael, these measurements are highly quantitative because that's obviously the federal guidance. But we have, and we're always open to interjecting qualitative. And we have this public comment period coming up, and hopefully we could be able to tease some of that out during that period. You make a great point, preference surveys and the like, and of course, Tom, about who will pay for it. It's always a big problem and a big concern in this region. So, but we take our lead from the feds, and at this point, we're making sure we're complying, but we're always open for, enhancing the process, certainly.
Mr. Chairman, if it's in order, then I move that the framework.
Sorry, we have one last question.
Bruce, I just wanted to follow up. If half the population isn't traveling, are they totally eliminated from this survey?
Well, no, they would still be given the survey, and they'll still show up in the overall survey, but when we're querying out which indicators, which measures that we're looking at least in terms of this framework as it exists, we've only looked at the people in that survey that are reporting travel, because those are the people that are affecting conditions on the roads and the assets that we're trying to kind of maintain. Absolutely, they're still included in the survey. And like Mitch just said, we're still open to public comment on the system. This will officially go out and be released by April 1st. And so if you have any comments, and this, this is a framework. It's not meant to be something that is set in stone from this time forward when you take action today. The action requested today is for the framework to live in the 2050 plan as a framework.
Anecdotally, if telecommuters are reflected in the numbers, the more telecommuters you have, the fewer cars are going to be on the street, and the lower the congestion is going to be. So, in a sense,
Yes.
telecommuters are reflected by the volume of traffic on the street.
Right, and this just happens to be word purpose, but we broke it out by other
But
purposes.
half of the people aren't telecommuting.
I think Mr. Griffin was going to make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well facilitated. I resume making the motion that the performance-based planning framework be approved and recommended for inclusion in the framework of the 2050. Is 2050 plan?
Yeah.
Yes. Do I have a second?
Second that motion.
Do we have any other discussion? Do we have any other discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
This will be forwarded to the executive board meeting next week, Thursday, at 9 o'clock. I think we're good for that. Let's move on to next we have the final project selection for 2024 Transportation Improvement Program. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped one. I've got two different agendas here. Northwest Indiana 2050 Plan Draft Strategies. The Northwest Indiana 2050 Plan Draft Strategies have been reviewed by committees and put out for public comment through February 22nd. The TPC will be asked to provide a recommendation to include the draft strategies in the draft Northwest Indiana 2050 plan, which will be out for public comment on April 1st, 2019.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So I will be presenting today the 2050 plan strategies, and that's the final draft. That's the fruitful of your hard work on the strategies. The 335 strategies that all the committees that worked on. So now we have a final draft, which I'm going to go through that, but I'm not presenting the over 300 strategies today. So the first draft of strategies, as Kevin mentioned, was released for public comment on the January 26th and ended by February 22nd. And we only received 2 comments. The first one, that people wanted more transit. And the second one was about the partnership between the different agencies. People put an emphasis on that, like we always have to come with a partnership. So these are the only 2 comments that we received for the strategies. And as a reminder here, we started the strategies here from the vision statements, which is connected, renewed, united, and vibrant. And from this one, we developed the strategies, and that was based on the performance measures and the influences and the futures that we really see that it's coming by the 2050 and how we meet the demands of the future by year 2050. So when we developed the strategies, we came up with the 2 short-term and long-term, and also we looked at the some area need a quick fix, or we have some crises and problems, and how we're gonna draft the strategies for that. And long-term, which is more strategic goals, and in this one, basically how to meet the demand of the 2050. And we have some is easy to do it, and some are very difficult to do it. But we have to have a different long strategies to come up with that. So the 335 strategies was reduced to 306. We have to merge some and some repeated ideas that we had to delete it. So we compiled them into 16 initiatives. These initiatives came out of course, the vision, the critical paths, and also the 306 strategies. In this one, we have, of course, all the strategies represent different tasks or focus, plan focus or element, which is economy and place. We also have the environment, people and leaders, and the mobility. So the 16 initiatives are uniquely corresponding to the 4 vision themes. And in the next slides here, I'm going to explain how we distributed all the 16 initiatives. So under connected, we are having the first initiative to plan for smart land use and quality of places. That came in a number of strategies. So we thought that would be a good initiative to take, and it's basically fit under connected. Plan for an e-commerce landscape. That it's a big trend. It's the e-commerce increased by 40% in the last 5 years, and it's projected to increase more. And how we're going to meet the future demand of the e-commerce with the connectivity, with the land use that are needed for the e-commerce. So that's the second initiative. The third one, plan for a regional transit. And that's, again, to go back to your concern about the transit and the qualitative analysis that we need to see, the people, how they feel about the service, the pay, and all of these things. We are planning to have a regional transit plan that address all of these issues. And we have over 35 strategies just going under the regional transit plan that addressing a variety of tools for the regional plan. So plan for complete streets and active transportation, that was also an initiative, and it's under connected. And plan for continually improved investment prioritizations. And that's really important, since we don't have enough funding, and how we prioritize projects in the future. You know, what's really important and how we're gonna invest in that, and how we are going to look also to have like more investment. So that's the first 5 initiatives. The second 4 initiatives under renewed. The first one is to plan for main centers and transit-oriented development. We have a number of activities, the West Lake corridors, and also for the South Shore, we also looking, and the RDA is looking to have a TOD, and now we have the transit district. And we are planning, we already working now, and they hire a consultant to work with for a TOD plans for all the communities along the South Shore or the West Lake corridor. So that's coming, and we have to be ready for that. Plan for asset vulnerability from climate change. That's also it's coming, and how we're going to plan for that, and I'm going into details for that. Plan for green infrastructure and green spaces. That's all under renewed, and then plan for brownfields, which is redevelopment and remediation. The next 4 initiatives under United, and the first one planned for transformative investments. And in this one, we have like a major transit is required and need funding. We have the West Lake corridor. We have a major corridors that need improvements. And that's like, we need to come together. You know, it's not just NERC can do that or NDOT. We have to come with the communities and come up with like a very creative way to come up with investment to meet all of these initiatives. Plan for a regional data and analysis framework. We need a lot to develop a lot of data analysis, and we listed that also under the strategies. Very important. So data is very important for the future. Plan for engage public and share best practices. As Scott mentioned, you know, like public engagement. It's very important to hear people, to release messages to them, to educate them, to come up with the best practices. That's important for public engagement. Plan for a more council of governments activities. That's NERC. You know, as a council of governments, we really have a list of activities that we need to pursue to meet the future demand and also to have like a better plan for the region. The next one here, or the last one, Vibrant. And in this one, we have like 3 new initiatives, but we are repeating the number 1 and 4 from the connected. Where is it? Number 1 and 4, it's also, you know, like we have a lot of strategies overlapping between connected and vibrant. So the first one, again, is plan for smart land use and quality of place. The second one, repeated, plan for complete streets and active transportation. So that will be also listed under vibrant, but with different strategies. And then plan for the cleaner air and energy. That's a big one. We have it also under the 2050 plan. And then plan for watersheds and water quality. You know, like if we need like a good region, vibrant region, how to always make sure that like we have all the development within the water, Lake Michigan, watershed, or also the water quality, how we keep the water clean. And then plan for economic development to have a vibrant region. So these, the 16 strategies that we allocated under the 4 vision of the plan. So I'm not going through all of them, but what I'm So I just picked few of them because we can go through all of them. So for example, a plan for smart land use and you know, with the economy in place, you know, like we promote development to occur within the utilities and infrastructure. But to do that, like we have to have a growth management strategies to ensure like that all the employment and all of the future growth occur within the urbanized area and in sustainable manner. And the Lake County comprehensive plan, the new one, they already proposed the growth management for all the communities, and that was very good, and I hope that we could do that with the other communities and other counties too. And then prioritize new and shared entrepreneurship spaces. That's a new demand now. A lot of startups now wanting to start their own businesses. Especially all of the web development and because of the e-commerce. We have a number of people that they do that already either from home or they do it as a remote workers, or they do their own like a business of one person or two person, and we need to think about the spaces for all of these people. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but I'm highlighting here to work to adjust zoning regulations to allow non-retail uses in closed big box retail. That's a big issue. We have a lot of, either in the mall, like Carson's and other big boxes, they are closing, and how we going to reuse these spaces now. Another strategies here, how to plan to repurpose big box retail, large commercial areas and other uses, to convert it to non-retail use, or because of the demand of the e-commerce, we need more distribution centers, we need like a logistics, we need also like a supply spaces. So, and the huge surface parking, how we gonna repurpose that? So we have different ideas, and I'm showing an example here. That was like a abandoned Walmart site that was in McAllen, Texas, and they came with a very creative idea to convert that to a public library, which is amazing. That's a good example of how to repurpose that. They utilized the huge surface parking, like for like a sitting area, landscaping, like a sitting area outside, and then they have like a drive-through, to drop the box. So very creative idea, and there are so many examples in how to repurpose the big boxes. So that's one of the things that we are going to work with the local governments, once we have that complete, of course we're gonna have like a working groups, we're gonna work through the land use committee, work with the planners to present, how to make changes to meet the future demand. Another one I picked here, the connected, which is planned for continually improved investment prioritization. And here, the best one is mobility here. Identify and prioritize high transit location. Congestion corridor. How to be the EDA and pedestrian and transit. The other one is look for additional sources. And that's what we are going to work on. One of the most important one is the regional corridor study that we did, the one in the bottom here, that we identified the 22 segments, that is the missing links within Northwest India. And if we build the 22 segments, really, as Scott run the model, it's improving a lot, the congestion and the travel within Northwest India. I know that we're working in Kennedy now, it's one of the segments, Main Street, which is right away on the new, the proposed TOD and transit station in Monster and Dyer, and that's very important to connect that to the Illinois side. That was proposed even before the Westlake Corridor. And the other one, I know that the Willow Creek is coming, it's one of the segments. So that's like a high priority area because to relieve congestion within the area. So we have strategies like that and how to prioritize investment and how to look for funding to invest in these good plans. Another one for renewed, which is maximize growth in existing centers to enhance civic and economic life and to protect natural area and farmland. The initiative for that is plan for asset vulnerability from climate change. That's a major area coming here as we see the precipitations is increasing And we are between here and here, as you see here, the Northwest Indiana in this area. So the days of precipitations will be 1.5 times, between 1.5 and 2 times. So it's coming and it's increasing, and how to plan for the future. The mobility also, you know, like evacuation plan, and how to have a plan, you know, to redirect the traffic in case of having flooding issue like this. So that's an important plan or important initiative that we're looking for the future. The other one here is a plan for an engaged public and shared best practices. And in this one, like, we need to educate people more about the ADA issues and universal design with the municipalities and counties. We need to talk more with the public, especially like NIPSI. We are working on that to have like more engagement with the public, and also bring Northwest Indiana experts to share their best practices with them. And we have a lot of recommendations under Engage and Public. I'm just picking some of them. We have like 3 or 6 strategies. So we could have like public engagement for people and leaders, and under economy and place, and mobility, and also united. The last one I'm presenting here is a plan for economic development. And basically I picked the mobility here because of the, again, e-commerce and the intermodal facilities that is needed within the area, and how we develop a plan for a multimodal intermodal hubs to improve them. So we have to be ready, you know, like for the future trends that is coming in the area, and how to plan for that. So that's really important for an economic development to go. So that's very much, you know, an overview how we put the strategies together. We finished phase 1, which is the final draft. That's completed. The phase 2, now once this is like final, we gonna identify who will be responsible for each strategies or each initiative. Is that NIPSI, a partners, a catalyst, or other people that we will be recommending. And as Scott already, you know, he presented the performance measure. That's what we are working on now, the phase 2 to finalize that. So that's, you know, like my quick presentation about the strategies today. I know that you all worked on the strategies. We came with very good ideas, a lot of recommendations, and we just asked, you know, like for recommendations to put it in the plan.
Thank you. I think a lot of this was just open up the discussion. Of course, it's going to need other people to volunteer, participate. A lot of this is beyond our control, but we need to have this discussion and close these gaps in our service and our accountability for all of our elected officials, for corporate people. I wish Northwest Forum, Indiana Forum is usually here. I know they have a lot put into this too. Greg.
I just have one question. Under the renewed goals, the overarching category of renewed, you mentioned something about transit-oriented development plan for communities, and you said something about hiring a consultant to assist communities. Is NERC
That
doing
we
that?
don't have a TOD plan.
Is NERC doing that?
No, RDA.
Okay, so you're talking about the consultants working with the communities for
Yeah,
RDA.
with
Okay,
the
I just want-
communities.
I
And
just wanted to-
NIPSI is going also to work on that
I
in the
just wanted to
future.
clarify that.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, this is just to open up the discussion and see what we can do to follow through with the path. These are things I think we agree that we need to be discussing at least. Yes.
As I was reading through these, when you get to 14, and I know we're not going line by line, but when you get to 14, we just have to go back with the plan for cleaner air and cleaner energy, is where kind of all fuels, electric vehicle infrastructure, all those things are kind of, you know, in this one area. As I was going through it, I kept making notes in the sections earlier, saying, you know, suggesting that alt fuel or sustainable transportation language could be included in other areas because it's here. And it shows that the intention is to work those issues in for air quality purposes. But what you're working in here are really regarding transportation projects and programs, and I think that some of that language could be used in some of the earlier sections regarding transportation, transit, planning, transit-oriented development and smart cities go hand in hand. There are, there's a number of different ways this could work in our area.
Any other comments or questions for Martin? See any, let's go ahead and move on. Yes, sir.
Is there an action?
Yes.
Going to that next.
Oh, I'm sorry.
As I said, I have two different agendas in front of me. I have the old one and now this one, so I'm starting to do that on last time. This is for the final project selection for the 2020-2024 Transportation Improvement Program. Group 1 and Group 2 projects for the 2020-2024.
We need an action for the strategy.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry, for
Yeah.
yours.
So I can leave.
I would move to recommend the Northwestern Indiana 2050 plan strategies to be pushed forward to the full commission.
Thank you. And this will be put out for public comment April 1st.
The whole plan, the strategy is already was finished.
Do I have a second for that? Thank you. Mark Odell, second. Any other
Thank you.
discussion? All those in favor, signal aye by saying aye. Let's get to the tip. I'm eager. Right, Charles?
Good morning, everybody. I do not have a presentation today. I am pleased to present or to announce that we have two Group 1 and Group 2 funds, and Group 2 funds have been worked out. We've gone through, we had some issues after the last TPC. Some of our numbers we found out were not correct, but we worked through that and we got those all ironed out. Our group funds, Group 1 funds, we've got those 99% worked out. And see, at this time, I'm only waiting on one more community for their approval. But right now, we have a working tip that, but I don't have anything to present as of now. We're also waiting on technical comments from NDOT, and the Federal Highway, Federal Transit Administration on their approval for our tip for 2020 to 2024.
Bottom line is, I don't have a problem with it. Does anybody else here see it holding softball? Just need to be aware of it. The staff tried last time. We're so close.
And we will get it. We will get it. The bottom line is, it has to be worked out. And like I said, I'm waiting on one confirmation that I was hoping, but I don't have it yet.
Any other questions for Charles? Right.
Can you just explain the process going forward from here? For all of us who have been part of that process so far. There's a little bit, it's been confusing at various steps. So I just wanted to understand, what else happens from here going forward, because, I think we have, obviously, Group 2 has their spending plan wrapped up. It sounds like Group 1 is close. Does that come back to TPC next month? Or what's the process going forward?
Well, for this immediate, yes, we'll come back. Excuse me, no, we won't, but it'll go out for public comment on April 1st. It does have to be fully approved by May by May 15th, I think, right?
Commission 16th.
What's that?
16th is the commission.
So May 16th is when it'll be go up for approval by the commission. So we will discuss it, actually at the April, I will have something, I will show everybody what we've got, and I will have a cleaned up version of what our tip will look like.
Bottom line is, we got a couple more shots at it, but let's try it for the April.
Yes, yes.
So just because time is valuable and we all spend a lot of time on this process, what's the anticipated date for this body to approve all those changes, all those elements in the tip that we've all been working on?
What's up?
May.
So it'll be May.
May.
Yes. May 14th, is that the TPC?
That includes all the NOPA projects that were part of the.
Yes.
Okay. When you say a couple more shots, so you're presenting a draft at the April meeting?
At the April, no, actually, at the April, I will present the entire tip document. And hopefully by then it should be resolved totally.
It should have been resolved like today, it should definitely be by April.
It will be, it will be by April. But it will ultimately goes before the commission in May. So it is our intention at the April, but by May it has to be done by May. Mike.
I follow what Craig's saying though. You mentioned by first April you're going to public comment, right?
Yes.
So.
For 30-day public comment.
So can it be revised in between? I think that's what Craig's driving.
Yes, it can be revised if we have substantial comments.
Not from the public, but from going back to T-Rock and the subcommittee, I think is what Craig's saying.
Yes, and we will discuss those at the next T-Rock meetings in 2 weeks on the 27th, I believe.
It's good.
The last Tuesday of the month. But for the most part, group 2 we've already worked out. And group 1, for the most part, I've talked to all the parties and that are involved. And everybody's pretty much come to an agreement. And I'm waiting on one community left.
Any other questions?
If I can just summarize so this
Yes.
makes sense. So on March 27th, T-Rock will have one more look at it.
Yes,
April 1st, it goes out for public comment,
correct.
but without having it in front of you today, you are not making a recommendation to approve it today by this.
Correct. Correct.
So there is no recommendation.
So there's no
Correct.
recommendation, so it's going out for public comment without any action on it. Okay.
So you're not requesting action like it says on the agenda? Or not?
Correct.
And it'll come back before CPC in May, before the commission.
It'll be back, I will show everybody in April what we have.
But then also May, because you have comment period for the same upgrade.
Yes, it'll come back in May because we'll have to after the comments. And in May, I will report on any comments and any action that was needed on those comments.
So what would T-Rock be able to do at the end of this month with it going out for public comment just a couple of days later? I don't think they'd be able to affect any changes with that.
T-Rock could, yes.
Why not?
But the rest of the TPC wouldn't know about it until May. Until it's already halfway through the public comment process.
Correct. But all the members of T-Rock hopefully would relay that to their representatives, any changes.
Everybody could.
And as of right now, there are no surprises.
I would request that any changes by any committee ahead of April 1st need to go to the entirety of the TPC mailing list, not just the TPC members, because, you know, Gary isn't even on the TPC membership. But if there's a project if there's an action affecting a pretty large community, they wouldn't know about it until halfway through the public comment process.
Gary is a member of TPC.
I don't think so.
Oh, yes.
Are they?
Got the list right here.
Okay.
But others aren't.
But we could forward that list out to members of the TPC. If this committee requests.
So how would Cherville manage it?
Cherville will be at the T-Rock. And anyone is really invited to T-Rock, so. But I would be more than happy to post that online and make it available for everybody's purview.
Let's just keep moving forward with this. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we don't really need an action right now, so.
Thank you.
Let's proceed. Topical committee reports. Anybody from EMPC? Ped and Paddle?
Yes, thank you. The Ped Pedal Paddle Committee did not meet in March. Our next meeting is Thursday, April 4th at 1:30, not a.m., so 1:30 p.m. Yeah, we really want public participation. 1:30 p.m. in this auditorium, and we'll be moving towards a 4-meeting per year schedule, along with the other topical committees going forward.
Was it operators roundtable?
The transit operators will meet on April 2nd. We're going to have a hefty meeting. We're going to be reviewing the 2050 plan draft, as well as everyone will be introduced to our new commissioner representation.
Land use committee?
The land use committee is meeting April 4th, same day like March, but 10 o'clock, 10:30, sorry. And we did not meet in March.
Surface transportation committee?
Surface Transportation Committee did not meet in March. Our next meeting will also be on April 2nd at 9 a.m. right before the transit operator roundtable.
Transportation Resource and Oversight Committee.
After confirming with my calendar, we are meeting on March 26th, not 27th. That is a Tuesday, last Tuesday of the month, at 9 a.m. in this room. I'll be introducing our new commissioners for Group 1 and Group 2, or Group 1, Lake and Porter counties. And we'll be meeting at the same day at 1 o'clock in LaPorte Parks and Rec Department. And we'll be, again, at 1 o'clock. And that's March 26th, not the 27th. Yes.
Reports from planning partners. Do we have anybody here from Federal Highway, Federal Transit, neighborhood?
Yep, CMAP. So a couple items. This Thursday, our NPO Policy Committee will be considering a plan amendment onto 2050 to add 2 additional projects to our region's constrained project capital project list. Those 2 projects are the O'Hare Express Service and South Lake Shore Drive improvements. Friday is the end of our call for projects for CMAC, the new STP shared program, and the Transportation Alternatives program. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you for coming. Do we have any other business or staff announcements?
I I will mention that, I know several communities in our region applied for next level trails funding in the state. Just so you understand that the state received about 84 applications totaling $140 million worth of requests for the initial $25 million pot of money. So obviously there is a very strong demand for trail development in the state. They expect to have this first round selected within the next month or two, and then there'll be hopefully another solicitation later this year, possibly for $25 and $30 million of the entire $90 million on the table.
Any questions for Mitch? Do we have any other staff announcements? I don't see any. The meetings and upcoming events are listed in your bulletin. Our next meeting will be April 11th in this room at 10 o'clock. I'm just going to ask for adjournment. Thank you all for coming.
Excuse me.
April 11th.
Thursday?
That's a Thursday.
Nope, not April 11th.
They have it wrong on my thing.
Okay.
April 9th. Thank you, Mark.